Mortgage arrears surge by 15%. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this article from the New Zealand Herald, shared to me by a viewer on Twitter, discussing, well, the surge in mortgage arrears over in New Zealand. You know, apparently their recession is over. Before we go through this, let's just jump and look at a few economic indicators for our Kiwi friends. You can see, you know, the recession's over. They had a 1.4% fall, a 12.2% fall, and then boom, it shot up to 14%, everyone. It beat expectations, but not quite the TE expectations, 14%. So there you go. The recession's over. Everything's fantastic, except arrears are up 15%. You know, their unemployment rate is at 5.3%, and you know their range, or the highest was at 11.2%. Let's go to the max data. When did that happen? Okay, right back here in the early 90s. So, oh boy, back at that recession. Look at that. Look at that sharp climb there. This ain't over, guys. I was having lunch with a friend today, and he thinks this year's pretty much been a holiday for a lot of people. He thinks next year we'll start to see the impact, the beginning of the tough times, but it'll be a year after that before the tough times materialize. I told him I'm terrified that, you know, all of these government handouts will become election issues. So let's look at the OEC, the Observatory of Economic Complexity, for New Zealand to get a bit of an understanding. Now, the economic complexity of New Zealand is 0.46. They're 49th in the world, much higher than Australia. And, you know, New Zealand, there is still capacity for you to join the Federation. Originally, New Zealand, one of the other British colonies in this part of the world, was going to join the Federation. But they are still quite remote. But then again, they're closer than Perth. But they didn't join. There's still the capacity, though, for them to, at least in Canberra. I don't think the Kiwis would like to. So their exports are 40 billion. Exports per capita are 8,228. Their imports are 40 billion, so they're importing slightly more. And let's have a look at what they're exporting. They're exporting milk, frozen bovine meat, rough wood, other fruits, wine, butter, sheep and goat milk. Let's see how much butter comes to Australia, because I intentionally buy New Zealand butter. I go out of my way to buy New Zealand butter when I can, even if you get the home brand or the knockoff or the cheap stuff. I try to get it from New Zealand because then I know there's a higher chance of it being pasture-fed, grass-fed cattle as opposed to grain-fed cattle, because there's a slight benefit to it with the nutrients you get from the food. It's probably all in my head, but still, you know, I like my Kiwi butter. So you can see where they're exporting to, everyone, countries all around the world. We can see here, let's have a look at there we go. And China, again, is a big destination for their butter and their milk concentrates. So, oh, whoa, a lot of that sent over. So they are a country that's, the biggest export is milk concentrate, sheep and goat milk, butter, rough wood, and frozen bovine meat. They export to China, then Australia, then the United States, then Japan and South Korea. So their economy is more complex than ours, not as mineral dependent. I imagine, well, being so farming dependent could have some advantages. So let's have a look at this here with regards to missed mortgage payments. Because, well, property in NZ, I mean, it's as crazy as Australia here, guys. It's just going as crazy too. More Kiwis are missing mortgage payments as demand for credit soars. Mortgage arrears rose for the second month in a row in November. Data from the Central Credit Reporting Agency, Centrix, shows there are now 15,000 mortgages in arrears, up 2,000 from September. And I did the sums, that's about a 15% increase 1 month to the next. When the pandemic first struck, concessions were made to allow retail banks to defer mortgage payments for customers in hardship, although interest still accrued on the balance, similar to here in Australia. And one thing some Kiwis may not be aware you actually have bank bail-ins over there. You don't have the protections that we even have here in Australia. They consider it something for the consumer to be aware of and to plan for. What protections we do have. So, of those who took up the deferral option, 80% had come off. But Reserve Bank data shows 2.6 billion worth of loans remain deferred. I mean, here's the thing. Fantastic, people are coming off the deferral options, but you're still getting more and more. You're getting now the rate of increase in arrears is growing. Centric Chief Executive Keith McLaughlin said those customers were likely the ones doing it tough. From our perspective, the concern leading into March is what's going to happen to the other 20% deferred mortgages, because that's probably the most hard-hit customers out there that are still on the scheme. We know that it's probably a 2 to 3% higher chance of them defaulting than any other mortgage. He said defaults in credit cards and personal loans were also starting to creep up, with arrears up 6% quarter on quarter. He said January and February were typically high default months anyway, and next year the trend would likely be exacerbated. We're going to have to see what happens here at the beginning of next year, even particularly in Australia with all of the sharp decline in personal insolvencies and the ASIC, all the changes to the rules. There is concern about what's going to happen in the first quarter of 2021. Meanwhile, overall demand for credit continues to surge to levels higher than what they were pre-COVID. Demand really started to lift 2 or 3 days ago prior to Black Friday. And when Black Friday was a record, while Black Friday was a record day, it hasn't fallen very far since then, he said. Demand at the moment is running about 103% of what it was pre-COVID. This is largely driven by an increase in e-commerce, being the buy now pay later business, also with retail sales and of course property. Well, of course, property. So there we have it, everyone. Arrears are up significantly in New Zealand, 15%, everyone, on mortgages. And yet, the recession's over, everyone. Unemployment's at high levels. Look at that climb. Look at that rate of change. Look at the GFC. The problem is, all of these economies around the world, they're just fueled by government stimulus. And the challenge is, how can you wean these countries off it? What's going to happen when you try and remove the support mechanisms, the props, the ag props that are holding up the slab? The government's pouring props under this slab that's creaking and breaking and about to fall. We'll have to see, guys. And then, of course, that's going to flow through to property if people start to have forced sales. The banks don't want it, the politicians don't want it, the property owners don't want it. Definitely going to be an interesting year next year, and the first quarter is one to keep an eye on. Before we finish up, let's just jump and have a look at the FX data. How is the New Zealand dollar doing as I'm recording this? We'll have a look here. New Zealand. Okay, 70.4 US cents. So it was at over 71 earlier today, and it's come back down. But still, look at 5 years, it's climbing back up. It's back to 2018 levels, everyone. That probably has more to say about the US dollar than about the New Zealand dollar. So what do you all think? Do you think we'll see another increase in arrears? And what's going to happen in January, Feb, and March next year? And are you living in New Zealand, guys? What is it like over there, economy-wise? How's the housing? Is it getting any more affordable? As always, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Please leave your comments and opinions down below. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye for now.